Thank you, members. Members, we heard a vigorous debate and discussion on this bill on Friday. We talked about the lack of evidence that this bill is going to do anything to enhance public safety in a meaningful way. We also talked about the impact this piece of legislation is going to have on the people of the state of Colorado. We talked about one business in particular, and then we talked about another. We talked about the loss of jobs that this piece of legislation is going to cause based on a hunch that this piece of legislation is going to have any impact on public safety. Then there was an amendment run to this bill to try to keep the manufacturer, Magpul, in the state of Colorado. Members, I believe that was inconsistent. That amendment to this bill was inconsistent to accomplish the bill sponsor's goals. And I'm here to tell you, if you haven't seen it, look in the Denver Post. The editorial board agrees with me. And I want to read from you part of that discussion in the editorial section of the Denver Post. It says the amendment, the one that exempts manufacturers, the amendment, said Representative Daniel Kagan, Democrat, Cherry Hills Village, should make it clear that all manufacturers will be able to still sell and transfer these high-capacity magazines to individuals in other states, the U.S. military and law enforcement personnel. We want them, manufacturers, to stay here in Colorado. It would be sad to see them leave. After a lively debate in the House on Friday, the amendment was added, and the entire measure was approved. But Republicans that day raised a fair question. If banning high-capacity magazines is really about public safety, why should Democrats bar Coloradans from buying them, but meanwhile give their blessings to Coloradans who make the same objects for export to other states? Surely those voting for the bill would favor other states and indeed Congress itself banning high-capacity magazines. To be clear, we don't blame Democrats for trying to save valuable jobs, but they are inconsistent. But are they inconsistent? Absolutely. Hypocritical? Perhaps that too. Members, I'm here to tell you today, this bill is now, as it's amended, absolutely inconsistent. This bill, as it's written today, it's written for the purpose. We heard people down in this well talk about the purpose of this bill. I think the bill sponsor said this bill is designed to prevent these instruments of war from getting into citizens' hands. We don't want that to happen. And then the sponsors of this bill came down and read the names of every person that was impacted by one of these horrific tragedies that happened over the last year. Read the names from the victims of the Aurora Theater shooting, and then read the names of the victims from the Newtown tragedy. And then passed this amendment that said, you know what, Coloradans, you can't have these magazines because they're instruments of war. But folks in Newtown, Connecticut, go right ahead and buy them because we're going to benefit from the tax revenue we get from the manufacturer. In fact, people in the other 49 states in this great union and people throughout the world, you can go ahead and purchase these magazines because apparently they're not instruments of destruction when they're purchased outside the borders of Colorado. They are only instruments of destruction when purchased within the borders of the state of Colorado. It is completely unfathomable to me that we would pass a piece of legislation with such gross inconsistencies associated with it.